I have a little friend with me today. Actually, what I do with training them as far as handling goes, typically only within the first year. He's about a year old. Within the first year, it's being really still, just letting them get used to you, not doing anything quick with your hands or anything. Especially him, because he was just kind of naturally had always, ever since I got him, had this timid, shy personality. When I first started handling him, he wouldn't get out of his scared ball for like 20-30 minutes. He just stayed in a scared ball. So we've come a long way, but I'm gonna actually start the next phase pretty soon about getting him to the point where it's not just me being really, really still, not saying anything, not doing anything. I'm gonna start actually moving a little bit and get him used to especially quick movements, because quick movements gradually get him used to that, because that is still something that he just instinctively doesn't trust. So they are born with really good instincts, and you have to let them know it's all right. So basically he's going to be in training as I do this video. I thought, why not? I mean, it makes it a little more interesting if I can kind of do two things at once, and you get to watch him while I'm talking about said subject. So probably, since we're starting this second phase of training with him, you're going to see him a lot more often. We're probably going to have several different videos with him in this kind of handling training, where he gets used to things that I haven't been doing much in the past. So anyway, so basically what I wanted to cover today was just kind of an in-depth kind of we did this towards the end. We did this toward the end of the first video, where it was like the introduction of myth versus truth and all that. Towards the end I was saying, okay, how do you know what or if you might be, and if, then how do you know what it is that you are? It's best to watch these in this particular playlist. It's best to watch all this shape-shifting stuff in order, because I will be going on an accumulative, every video it builds on itself, and so if you don't watch them in order, you're really not getting much out of it. So basically, there's a lot of things that you can go by to find out, but there's two main differences between and like I said, this most people nowadays, unfortunately, mind, body, soul, are not ready, and therefore that gift is kind of buried and dormant. But even when it's buried and dormant, there's things that you can do to kind of figure out, am I just somebody with an animal soul, or am I someone who's an actual shapeshifter? They're two different things. They're kind of related. Animal soul is, okay, I've got the soul of an animal but a human body, or at least part of my soul is an animal, and basically that is usually due to living at least one past life, if not many past lives, as something other than human. So typically whatever that was, say I was a wolf in my past life, then part of my soul, especially if that's a big part of my soul, is going to be wolf, even though I'm just human in this life. That is animal soul. That is what some people call Therian. I don't really like to meddle in that, because it starts getting a little construed as far as all the very specifics that they talk about, and I just don't like a lot of the how people specify exactly what a Therian is. It's way too complicated. Different people think it's different things, but basically I just say animal soul. And then true shapeshifter is someone who not only has that part of them that's animal in their soul, but they physically have the ability to shapeshift. Remember, this is not modern paganism. Modern paganism is, we only believe that stuff like that kind of magic happens in the dream realm and stuff. Well, ancient paganism doesn't go by that. Ancient paganism goes by the knowledge and the wisdom of our ancestors, and our ancestors said that it was possible to physically shapeshift, but you had to be really powerful, strong, in terms of all your chakras had to be completely balanced. You had to be as strong as you possibly could be. Nothing wounded, nothing unbalanced, or it wasn't possible. So it went by a lot of rules, but it could potentially, if someone was mind body so balanced and strong enough, be able to. So let me just talk a bit about what that is that you can go by. If you're animal soul, you might, have sort of occasionally a bit of a thought process as the animal that is a part of your soul. You might maybe in some situations have a longing to, kind of live as an animal, be free as an animal in the forest instead of domestication and stuff like that. But do you really have heightened senses? Do you have physically, even in your human form, do you have all these heightened senses? Do you have the same level of thought process that a physical shapeshifter would have? Not usually, because that is on a much stronger level. Usually, I say usually because sometimes you have animal soul people who otherwise would be physical shapeshifters but have lost the gift. They have lost the gift because they are so unbalanced. They are so unfortunately, they've got their soul's gotten to the point where it's too much ill intent, and the universe has just completely taken away that privilege, and so they've lost it. And sometimes you see people who either have just lost it or are at least coming from a life where they were animal, they did something bad as an animal, and then now they've lost the privilege to be an animal, and they're reborn into human. Either way, you kind of sometimes get people like that who are freshly dethroned, for lack of a better term, that sometimes will have a bit more animal instinct and stuff like that. True shapeshifter, you've got instincts, you've got, like I said, heightened senses. You're typically stronger than you ought to be, but not always. It kind of just depends. And the way you think is not like the way a human thinks at all. You're just born thinking different. If you're a predator and you see something run away from you, you've got an instinct, a natural, very strong instinct to chase it. You can even sometimes have a bloodlust, a literal, like you crave the taste of blood. That's what I mean by that. Because what you would eat naturally, is this raw meat. That was what you'd naturally be eating. So it even in human form, you can hear things no one else can. You can see stuff in the dark that you shouldn't be able to see. Stuff like that. You can smell things no one else can. It's at a much greater level. And honestly, that's part of how you figure out what you are. If you don't know what you are, you can always do some kind of visionary work. But I mean, if you're matching, okay, this is my instinct. This is this is my kind of thought process. Am I thinking like a predator? Am I thinking like a prey animal? Or am I, does this seem cat-like to you? Or, it's just different things that you notice. Oh, that's what a dog does. I wonder if I'm some kind of canine. And so that's, unfortunately, you laugh, but that's right there. If you don't have that, you're not a shapeshifter. The only time you might not have that is if you've suppressed your soul to the point where you don't even know who you are anymore. And when someone suppresses their soul, they feel like an empty shell. They don't really have any emotion. But other than that, assuming you're not suppressed, then if you don't have any signs like that, then you're probably not a shapeshifter. If you haven't had the immense, and I mean immense, feeling like you need to be free and run on all fours out in the woods, I'm serious, then you're not a physical shapeshifter. There's just certain things that we all have in common, even if we're not ready to shift, even if that gift has been dormant. There are things that we all have in common. So you have to do a bit of digging. You have to think, okay, if I have all these things, if I've said yes to all or a lot of these things, then what am I? And sometimes it's not as obvious as you might think. You might actually start thinking, okay, I do this a lot, that's kind of what a goat does, but I also do this a lot, that's kind of what a wolf does, and like I said in the other video, you can actually be a compilation, because your soul can be a compilation of more than just one thing. You can be human, you can be wolf, you can be goat, whatever your soul is. And sometimes they don't separate. Sometimes instead of shifting one or the other, it's so intertwined that you're shifting it into this kind of hybridized looking thing. And a lot of people, like I said, that haven't watched the other video, talk about the myth versus truth, and there's more myth out there than truth, so please look at that, because that'll help clear a lot of what I just said up. But again, it's very rare, but animal soul is actually a lot more common. The animal soul is actually quite common compared to physical shape, and really the only difference is one shape shifts physically, one just doesn't really physically do anything, but they've still got that soul there. So the mannerisms, the behavior, I have literally many times done something, and as a child I just was allowed to be a child, it was nice, but as an adult I'll catch myself doing things. I'll go to bed and I'll like scratch the stuff off. You know how sometimes you get little fuzzy things on the bed, and instead of picking them off or brushing them off, I'll just instinctively kind of scratch them off like a wolf, and I won't mean to. And I'm like, oh, oops, I'm wolfing out. I didn't, and it's just something that you don't even realize you're doing most of the time. So it really, once you really dig deep into this, it's not going to be hard at all to find out, the difference between which one you are. It's just going to take a bit of insight, really. And then, like I said, the last thing, if you're really stuck, then you can do some kind of dream work or visionary work, where you go and see in that light what your form is, or forms, plural maybe. But it has to be something that's connected to your soul. It has to be something that your soul already is. It can't just be something random. So that'll give you a hint right there. So everybody say good job, Zimber, for being such a good lad while we were doing this video and being so patient, and we will see you again soon.